Ada saya ada ada. Hello.
Hi.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening.
Yeah, bro.
Apa khabar? Oh, nampak
Okay.
handsome, nampak gaya.
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay.
how are you? Good
Yes.
evening, happy PKP/MCO, and
Yeah.
welcome to Instagram, Club Tony Seram's Instagram Live of Horror, the unofficial Bedah Siasat of The Exorcist, 1973.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. Terima kasih ya kena menjemput saya.
Boleh.
Honored.
We can do this in English, Malay, whichever you feel comfortable with.
Okay. Alright.
Okay, sir. Before we, kebanyakan of our Club Tony Seram fans may not know who you are. So why don't you introduce yourself? And I know you as an author. I know you as a lot of other things also. So please do enlighten us of who you are and what you bring to the table.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Megat Ishak. I am a writer of the horror genre. Okay, I love horror. I've always liked horror, since I was young, and I've been reading a lot of horror stuff. I've been watching a lot of horror movies. So, like it or not, I started writing horror. Okay, I've had 3 books published in the horror genre. The first one is Cannibal vs. Along and Other Bloody Stories. Okay, the second one is Dark Highways. Okay, a collection of 13 short stories. And the last book I wrote was this collection called Hardcore. So my interest lies, like I say, in horror, but these stories are not so much supernatural horror, but the horror of the human mind and what it can do to other humans. So the horror doesn't have to be, hantu or phantom, whatever. It can also be how horrific a human being can be to another person. Having said that, however, I accept all manner of horror, which includes supernatural horror, and the subject matter of tonight, which is the Exorcist, Bedah Siasat of the movie Exorcist. And I suppose we're going to discuss about the impact of the movie back in 1973, because the Exorcist is legendary, it is epic, and until today it's still the #1 spot as the most scariest horror film ever made. Okay.
True. And where and when was the first time that you watched The Exorcist?
Exorcist. I guess the first time when I was a teenager. I mean, I look older, but I'm not that old. So when it was in 1973, I was only 4 years old, and I remember my father was telling us he saw the movie, and he was telling me that how it was playing in his mind, the images of the film. Menghantui lah. Basically, my father punya experience of the movie memang menghantui my father betul-betul. Dia nampak, terbayang sana. So, back then it was a big deal lah. It was really scary lah. And then I saw that in my teens, and the horrific part, the facial, everything was okay. But the part which got to me were the scenes in between, before the actual event happening. For example, when Reagan's room was suddenly very cold and the window was open, that's going to be built up to something. So those kind of in-between moments are the ones that actually get under your skin. That's the part that makes it scary lah.
Yeah. And I think William Friedkin did a damn good job in executing a lot of the scenes. And 80% of the movie didn't have any music composed in it, and that played quite strongly to its atmosphere and why the scenes actually work. So that is something that I think a lot of directors fail to reproduce or duplicate in the modern era. And after that, so this is considered one of the first mainstream possession movies. Prior to that, there was only one demonic possession movie in 1922 called Haxan from Germany. So it took about 51 years for a possession movie to be actually filmed again after all of strict censorship. And now we apply that in Malaysia, because in Malaysia there's not a lot of strict. We have strict rule and a lot of strict rules, but there are loopholes. We have looked at I mean, we have watched a lot of horror movies that deal with possession. Tapi kat Malaysia, right? What would you think would be one of the biggest challenge of a Malaysian filmmaker trying to get the atmosphere from Exorcist? I think the closest comparison we can come up with was Munafik 1, where Shamsul Yusuf.
Okay.
I would like to put this word. This you can quote me on this later. Dia ciplak the story, not the story, but the formula. So you have a priest on this side, Ustad, who lost their faith based on somebody that lost their lost loved one or such. And we have a woman on this, in the Exorcist, we have a 12-year-old kid. And in this side, in Munafik 1, we have a woman who's going through stages of possession, which sama-sama lah, ada konflik kan. So when you look at this conflict of possession, what other movies you think that comes to mind for you, which can at least go to par as Exorcist?
Okay, I got one of my favorite horror films, or one of my favorite movies, basically, in another genre in Malaysia would be the handheld camera movie called Seru. Okay, that one has a solid plot, solid storyline. It's also about possession, and the best part was a twist at the end. You know the movie Seru, right? I think it was written by Pierre Andre. Pierre Andre was in there. It's basically about a film crew. They were basically wrapping up production stuff, everything, and all the major actors have left. So the crew was left behind in the middle of the jungle, basically, in the settlement. And one of them gets possessed, and she has an agenda. At first, you think it's a random possession. Then you realize there's a pattern to all this. And the best part is, it was a more credible handheld film than, let's say, Blair Witch Project, only because the people that actually handled the cameras were filmmakers, crew. So they knew what to do, and it wasn't just random. They were there to basically take shots of what was actually happening to them. And it made perfect sense because the view was good, and the camera was not that random. It was, it was on every angle. I couldn't find any fault with the movie. And I like the suspense build up, and I like the violence. There was one scene where this girl that was possessed was handcuffed to the bed, or the sink, I think. So she escaped, but she leaves behind her hand. So her hand was just hanging there. And I thought, okay, that's a nice touch. You don't exactly see dismemberment in a Malay movie. So I appreciated that much. So that, to me, I mean, the other movie I quite like is a recent one I saw called Pusaka. And Pusaka is a relentless, non-stop barrage of horror. The sounds, the music, the sounds are so loud, I think they may have pushed it a bit too much, but the impact of the sound, and then the build-up, and then the continuous scare factor, kept assailing you. You will be assaulted by all sensations of fear and terror. And I think it worked. They never let up. And from the beginning until the end, it was a matter of just attacking the viewers non-stop. And I appreciate that. There was no possession so much, but mainly it's about demonic attacks, and how history of certain families eventually come up to you. But I think that was more about Pusaka. That one is more about Saka. Okay, I'm sure you're familiar with the term Saka, right? So the movie was basically a homage to the great Malay tradition of Saka, where it passes from generation to generation. And there was an appreciation of that horrific facet of the Malay culture, at least you can say, the dark Malay culture.
Yeah. Going back to Seru for a while, fun fact, I think Seru was one of the best Malaysian found footage movies you can make. They have all the impact, but the problem was when it comes to marketing the movie. During the same time where the movie was released, I think a week apart, there was another movie called Istana Penunggu, and it was produced by oh my god, I just forgot what was his name. He's a famous Malaysian paranormal investigator. Apa namanya? I can't remember him at the moment. So yeah, he had the advantage of all the TV's broadcasting channels to advertise his movies more because he was already on regular TV. Which, though that movie didn't have any impact at all. Penunggu Istana was honestly lame. I would like the word lame. Yeah, everything cliche yang boleh buat, they did it, and it still stuck.
Right.
But when we walked out from the theater watching Seru and Istana Penunggu back to back, the satisfaction we had, of course, should we keep it spoiler free or spoiler free?
I think let it rip. I think you should just. It's been done already. I mean, just come out with a spoiler.
Okay, then the ending. Yeah, the twist was good. The whole aspect where they introduced the black magic angle, semua, and then for a found footage movie, it was actually very well choreographed because it didn't feel like it was too shaky of a cam impacts. But semua pakai production. It makes sense because you're using production camera, and it's a production set. So obviously nobody's going to be running around with only small camcorders and phones. And these are like damn 4K cameras. And yeah, it makes sense. Number one. Number two, the ending, it was good. But the marketing and the distribution, there was a lot of problems with distribution because most people could not get their hands on the movie after it was out in theaters. So yeah, kudos to Seru and thank you for bringing that up. And in fact, I think I've seen it on your Facebook post that you mentioned Seru. Sampai sekarang, if the producer or the director, anybody knows the producer or the director, have a copy of it, hantar kat Instagram kita boleh distribute dengan untuk kamu lah, 1% profit, 1% of, you know what, since Abang Megat on the line, 50-50 lah, so we make it 10% profit and we share out of it. It's a good movie to distribute.
I'm good for that.
Okay, back to the Exorcist then. So, one of the scenes that... shall I say, sorry, did I cut you off?
No, it's okay, Karen. Now, I was going to say that the year that Exorcist was, why Exorcist is a bit different than the rest, right? The movie itself was that in 1973, they had fantastic movies that came out. We had Enter the Dragon. We had, like The Baby. Okay, The Baby is a small film that came out a bit later, but we had all those non-horrific films, you know? And for the director, William Friedkin, right? He went on to make The French Connection. He's not a horror guy, you know.
Oh, he did the French Connection.
To me, like, based on two things. Why? He did French Connection first, and then he did Exorcist, and then French Connection 2, right? Okay, Popeye Doyle. And he went on to do, you know, in the 90s, in the 2000s, he did Live and Die in LA. His range is very varied, okay? And yet, the question is, how come he managed to hit the nail on the head? And I put it down to the writer, William Paul Blatty's style of writing and how it was adapted to the film. Because it was so beautifully done. The characterization of the priest, Reagan, the mother, the Hollywood scene, all that was just nicely put together for somebody who's had no history of doing anything horrific, you know. He does mainly crime thrillers, you can say, crime thrillers. And basically slightly mainstream kind of films. But for this one, he managed to pull it off and he did it fantastically. And I mean, for other horror directors, I suppose, for somebody who did that is one and only horror film, it becomes still the number one scary movie, you know, in cinema history, you know. And that's a true director and a true writer that basically joined forces to create something. And that's what I want to say about the film.
Yeah, that is actually quite accurate. But just to add on to what William Friedkin brought into the movie was when William Betty speaking to Warner Studios on discussing who to bring on as a director, he did not want to have any directors which are factory generated. And when he watched the French Connection, he identified at the same time. William Friedkin was known as a director that experimented a lot on the shots. He was a known guy, and he had this certain style called guerrilla choreography, cinematography.
Right.
This was 1973 was like most people in Grindhouse. Like Sam Raimi started it in the Evil Dead to bring it to a more mainstream feel. William Friedkin was the only one at that time and that place, and William Peter Blatty wanted him. Nobody else to direct the movie because he felt like he could bring that style on it. He didn't want it to be another horror movie. Mainstream horror movies were quite flat at that time. Grindhouse style was picking up, so he wanted him to bring up the style. So that one was an excellent that one I have to agree with you. Excellent choice, William Friedkin. Nobody else would have done a better job.
Yeah.
Let's look at the cast members here. Nearly every cast members, main cast members, were hurt or they were injured somehow or rather during the post-production period.
Oh yeah, the curse of the Exorcist, right?
Yes. People are throwing the word curse a lot, but then as about this film, I think here is something that one information that might bring up, may debunk the curse, is that normally for a Hollywood production, production itself will take about 3 months at least. So anything can happen within 3 months. But for The Exorcist, there were a lot of issues, which include over budget and because of injury. And there was a case where the set was caught on fire. So they had to be.
Except for the room of Reagan's room, right?
Except for Reagan's room. What you won't be able to find online or any of the documentaries is that the production time frame actually took 1 year and an additional 30 days. So 1 year and 30 days. So 25 months. Yeah, 24 plus 1, 25 months. Hey, sorry, 30. Okay, I married an accountant.
14 months. 13 months. 13 months.
So you know why I don't know how to do numbers. 14 months, yeah. Hey, 13 months. 14 months.
13 months. 13 months.
So for the budget and the time frame, that was like one of the overspent projects. Anything can happen within the 1 year. Even if you look at now, that by injuries, fire, blah blah blah. Anything can relate to somebody that you know, or somebody that you can relate to within 1 year. So could just be not a curse, but it may be due to the time frame itself.
Loss of probability. The longer you are on set, where you don't control the variables, some accident is bound to happen. Like Ellen Burstyn, remember the scene where she was thrown off and she landed on her back. She had some spinal problem after that, which until today apparently still persists, a back injury because of that scene.
Yes, and she never regretted it.
But you're right, you got a point, because you're right, it's like 13 months, and the set, and then added with the fact that compared to nowadays where you've got high insurance premium, you've got people to make sure that nobody actually bleeds or have a paper cut or anything, right? So back then it's a bit, even though it was mainstream cinema, mainstream studio, but they were still, like what you said, he was experimenting, and maybe the angle shots were different, maybe the manner of how he directed was a bit unorthodox, and the crew and the actors were not prepared for his kind of directing, possibly. That could have led to or contributed to the many accidents which occurred during that period.
Okay, you mentioned Ellen Burstyn, who played Reagan's mother. Let's look at Father Marine himself, Max von Sydow.
Who died recently, right? He died this year, right?
Earlier this year.
Yep.
What do you think? What do you think about his role as Father Marine?
Okay, firstly, I don't think I've ever seen him young. He's always been the same age from the 70s until Dune, until now. The guy has been consistently old, and the guy is brilliant. Tell me if you've seen him young as a young man. He's always looked old. Even like 50, 40 years ago, he looks the same. In the later movies, Anyway, so Max von Sydow, he lends a certain weight. Okay, obviously he lends weight to the film, but also lends that calmness, that stability. In any movie, to me, like in any good movie, there must be people you hate, people you root for, and people that provides the kind of safety or a safe house kind of thing. And Father Marine brought that. He brought that kind of authority figure that, I'm sure back in the day where people were not, I can't say not so much anti-establishment, but a lot of older people actually can reflect themselves in him, or, has reference to him. So he brought that kind of gravitas to the movie. And I don't think anybody could have filled that role as well as he did,
True, except
I mean,
they offered the role to Marlon Brando first, but it's a good thing that Marlon Brando said
mm,
no. But he wouldn't have
yeah,
told this to anybody else. Max von Sydow, Max von
no,
Sydow is
because
the best for the job.
yeah, because Marlon Brando would have been acting, like what he did with The Godfather. The other person I can consider would be Anthony Quinn. Anthony
Ah,
Quinn would have been quite a similar level of calmness and father-like figure. Anthony Quinn, Max von Sydow, that kind of calm, that kind of experienced guy that doesn't have to say he's experienced. You can
yeah.
read
Oh,
it in
Jalan
his
Lebih
eyes,
Kapal.
in his face.
What is
That's
it?
right. Yeah, that steady, the anchor,
Yeah,
keeps the momentum
yeah.
going. You
Mm.
know.
Yes, I
Yeah,
totally agree. Everything that you
he was
said.
perfect for the role.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to Father Karras himself, Jason Miller. Jason Miller appeared in two
Yes.
Exorcist movies, the first one and the third one.
Yep.
But his portrayal on the first one was just he could have gotten an Oscar for that. He pulled out a broken down
Right.
priest like 110%. Your thoughts on it?
Mm. Okay. Yeah, you're right. He did bring forward the tortured soul, a man in conflict, and a man that's pulling up all the dredges of whatever faith was left in him, and how he managed to use them as tools of his so-called salvation for Reagan, you can see.
Mm.
And it's not so much that, okay, that was a script written, that was written for him, and he acted out that part. But you can actually feel the pain in his face. You can feel, it's almost skin deep, you can feel it without him having to say anything. The expression on his face, his body language, how he carries his body, how he uses his space around him. You can actually tell that he's horrified, he's scared. At the same time, he's more scared about his own mortality and his own strength of his faith and how to deal with a demon as powerful as was it Azuzu? Azuzu, right? Yeah.
Okay, most
Yeah, I mean
favorite.
he was up against formidable, foe.
Yeah. Most favorite Father Karras scene, which is the most memorable and most famous or favorite scene of him in the movie.
Mm, it's hard to say, lah. Uh, I guess the parts where he gets most affected, he gets most. You can see you can read the fear in his eyes. He was fighting. Sometimes when you have a confrontation, you try to push down your fear from coming up. Those were the scenes which I can't specify a particular one because it was spread out throughout his engagement with Reagan and the demon inside her. I would say the part where he was trying to quell that kind of fear rising up in him.
Yeah, I
How about
think
for you?
half of the movie he was trying to debunk that what Reagan was going through was just a psychological issue. But once the demon starts projecting his mother and revealing things about his
Mm.
things about mother, and I think that's when the fear started emboiling. And my memorable and most favorite scene from Father Perez is when he's speaking to Reagan or Pazuzu, and it quotes. It's in his mother's voice, asking him, "Why
Right.
you do this to me? Why you do this to me?" So that line was like, if this 1973 they created memes, they could have used this as a what meme,
Mm.
like, "Why you do this to me, Bini?" Like, "Hey, Kerajaan Baru, why you do this?" You know? Okay, so let's continue by speaking about the woman who made Exorcist so memorable for us when we were young. Let's talk about Linda Blair.
Yep.
So she's now actually what?
She was 14 at that time, right?
I think she was 13 when they started, and they started filming, and she was 14 about a year, yeah. When they ended
Yeah.
14.
In fact, the movie kind of like spoiled her career overall because she was so caught. It was so like it was made for like one role, the role of a lifetime, I would say, for her. And for her parents to allow her to be in such a film, it is a horrific film. There are scenes that are too horrific to mention, like the crucifix scene. You know what she did with the crucifix, right?
Oh yeah, we
I'm
can
not
also
even
make this.
say it here, okay?
No, we can. This is an R-rated program. Boleh, rendah, boleh. The
Oh, okay,
masturbation scene.
okay. When she, yeah, until the blood, you know, I mean, it's like, I'm not a Christian, but I can sort of like feel offended for them, you know, because it is a sacred object to them, and how it is violated, you know, is sacrosanct, you know, and the fact that 13-year-old girl actually was part of that scene, okay, even if there is a body double, or even, but she was seen to be doing that act, and I mean, she pulled it off, lah. But I'm wondering at what price, you know, for somebody so young. I mean, you've got Brooke Shields in Baby Dolls when she was 12, 13. Even that left a scar on not just her, but Hollywood itself. So what more? To me, Linda Blair's role as Reagan or McNeil is even worse in the sense because it's not just sexual, but it's also violation of a faith structure, which is, I don't know, I mean, back then, I mean, imagine if they did the movie now, you know, with that scene. You know, just imagine the reaction, you know. I don't know, I mean, it was a brave thing to do, basically, and it was a brave thing for her as a young girl to do it. And then she could have just said no, she could have just said, you know, convince the parents to tell the director, I'm not going to do this. It's so horrible, it's so disgusting. You know, but she pulled through and she went on ahead. And the part which I think, the anchor of the whole presence in the movie was that she's got the face of an innocent child. You know, the chubby cheeks, the innocent look, the very sweet-looking girl. And suddenly she switches over to a demonically possessed, you know, monster. And that part was, you know, bridging, you know, the huge gap. She managed to bridge it together. And that was the amazing part of her acting. And she was shouldering, apart from Father Kara, she was shouldering the whole movie on her young shoulders, I would say. You know? And it is consistent. Her personality, her character, from being the tired and scared young girl to the demon, you know, consistent throughout the whole film. So you never felt for one moment that, you know, she's just acting or she's changed her character, out of character. It was in sync throughout the whole movie. And I mean, you got to hand it to her, for somebody so young to pull it off. It's very, very impressive.
Yes, and just to add on to that, years later we found out that not all of the scenes were pulled up from, was done by Linda Blair. We had a stunt double named Eileen. This is something I digged up. Eileen Dietz. Her name was Eileen Dietz, and she was a little older than Linda Blair at the time. And she did the masturbation scene with the cross, the levitation scene, the vomiting scene, and during the final exorcism, when you see Linda Blair's face turn and you can see half of it is there's a demonic face of a Zulu face. So there was 5 scenes where it was done by a stunt double. Other than that, it was all 100% Linda Blair. So she did not only a good job, great job, but I don't understand why she didn't get an Oscar. Maybe wasn't there an Oscar for it in the 70s?
Tatum O'Neal got an Oscar for Best Actress. And she was a child. But you're right, it should have been Linda Blair, you know.
Yeah. I think
did she do the spider walk or not?
No,
who did the spider walk? Was it Linda Blair?
Oh, wasn't Linda Blair. It was another contortionist. Shit, I can't pronounce it. Contortionist. They actually hired to shoot the spider walk scene, which was during the party, isn't it? The Hollywood party. And that scene was one of the deleted scenes.
And then they took it out.
Yes, they took it out. And thank God 20 years later, we got to watch it. And I think we recommend that as an awesome workout for during MCO and PKP. If you can do that at home, I would recommend that. I added that.
I mean, the fact that they showed the masturbation scene, but they cut out the spider scene. I don't understand. What was the spider scene more horrific than the other scene? I mean, why did they take out this?
Okay, I think the issue was technical, because at that time there was not the amount of technology that we have right now. And if you look at the spider scene closely, right, you will be able to see rigs near her legs, the top part of her legs and her arms. You see the rigs, and which now our technology kita boleh buat apa-apa. But back in the 70s, and William Friedkin being the pinhead that he was, he just didn't like that scene at all. and he said, remove it. We couldn't get it done.
All right.
Yeah, so that was an excellent scene. Yes.
All right.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
another topic. The other actress, which I think you would know who she is, that was offered the role of Reagan before Linda Blair was Jamie Lee Curtis.
No, seriously? Wow.
And she really wanted the one of the interviews in 2006-7. She really wanted the role, but her mom said no. So when she told this information to her friends in school after the movie comes out, and everybody started making fun of her as the Exorcist girl. But then she became the Halloween girl. So, hey, everything worked out, didn't it?
Yeah, she really wanted to be the queen of Scream or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it became anyway. So I think that's one thing that we're lacking in Malaysia. We don't have a screen queen. We never, other than Maya Karin, I can't think of any other prominent screen queens. Can you think of anything from the top of your head?
No. Although Fazura did a good job in Kami Hysteria. Have you seen that? She was a Pontianak.
Okay lah.
I mean, it was comedic in nature, but I found it entertaining and I found it effective. Okay, I've got one question, right? I've got one question. Okay. What if Exorcist was never shown in the 70s but was produced now? All right. Take away the fact that so many horror tropes are taken from the Exorcist. Exorcist has been harvested and mined like nobody's business, right? But what if Exorcist were to stand it as it is today? Let's say it was produced, let's say, last year, shown this year, 2020. Would it have the same impact? Would it be as scary if you were to put up against movies like Hereditary, you know, Midsommar's? Where would it stand in terms of possession? Because now possession movies is a subgenre in itself, you know. You got a whole slew of possessed women, from Autopsy of Jane Doe to the possession of Hannah Grace. You know, you got a whole bunch of possession movies. Where would Exorcist land? You know, do you think it can still stand the test of time? I mean, notwithstanding all the tropes, but the effect, the elements, the drawing of the suspense, do you think it can still stand on its own or not?
Okay, for me personally, this is totally opinion and personally, but we are playing with the multiverse here when it comes to this question, because Exorcist started it. So if it didn't start the possession genre, then we wouldn't have a possession genre at all. But realistically, we have to look at what the horror what the horror genre is all about. It's about a message to the people. And it basically has tropes of what's going on at that time. And if you look at Exorcist, it was more of after the Vietnam War, and the kids were teenagers were more retaliating towards the government, and it was a growing up phase for how after war mentality of American media. So we putting the Exorcist and saying if we had 100% the movie did not exist at that time, and then we use the reality stone from Thanos, and we bring the exact movie, and now I do not think it will work because the reputation has been done so many times. But we look at remakes and reboots, right? Evil Dead tried a reboot. We're looking at Sam Raimi's original Evil Dead, which was in, give me a second, 1 year was Evil Dead. Evil Dead was in
1982.
81. 1981.
82, right? 81, all right, 81. Okay.
81.
Right.
The good thing about having a book beside you is you get to see everything. So yeah, 1981. So Sam Raimi's low budget endeavor started the whole Scream King, we would say, because having a male position, a male actor or a male figure or male character put in a position where Scream Queens are normally in. So if there wasn't Evil Dead, we wouldn't have the whole genre of possessed, demonic, blah blah blah. But with a man who is vulnerable enough to withstand and comedy elements, which came into after the Army of Darkness and everything. But the reboot in 2013. That was actually a good way of bringing the whole phobia angle out when living in the Cabin in the Woods. Plus, some might agree that it's a good remake, some might not agree. But for me, when it came to the gore, when it came to the factor of the shock terror, the shock terror, it did its job. Now going back to the Exorcist, the only sequel we ever had was the TV series. Have you watched the two-season Exorcist TV series?
Yes, I did, and I liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I like it. I think if you want to pull out a second, I mean, if Exorcist didn't exist in '73 and you want to do it again in 2020 or 2019, last year was the last season, second season. I think that would be the best way to go, and they did a damn good job at it by linking the past and making it a soft reboot, but still bringing back the characters. Glenn Close did Linda Blair's character Reagan. I think was awesome job. Season 2, I think John Choi did a good job carrying the whole. I think there was two stories. There was one, the family with John Choi, which is and then we have Father Mary. Oh no, I forgot the name of the two priests. Their commitment and conflicts of two generations and learning.
Right.
It was like Obi-Wan and Anakin Skywalker.
Correct, exactly. They're like the two Jedi, basically.
True, and how they got to help this family, and I think it was well done. It was well done. Technically, it was Exorcist 1973 brought into the modern time, which because they include the technology in it, handphone, blah blah blah. They had one thing that I think the Exorcist 1973 kind of like didn't touch on was before a case has to come to the stage of exorcism, right? There is a procedure where the Vatican City will approve the exorcism. So I think that the movie didn't kind of speak too much on it, didn't touch too much on it, because at that time the Vatican City, Rome wasn't much open-minded macam sekarang lah. Like sekarang kalau nak buka case balik of the Conjuring or whatever not, they wouldn't mind discussing about it, and they're quite open about the exorcism procedures and how to identify if one is infected by possession. Which kalau if you look at it, I think the TV series, to answer your question, the TV series is the best example of how you can bring it forward to the future in modern times.
Right. You're right, you know. To me, it wasn't creepy, but it was painful to watch because it was very realistic. The special effects, you know, you can feel the pain. You can feel the pain, like for the first season, the pain of the sisters, you know, the two sisters, and how the younger sister actually was going down, you know, her health was going down, she was looking horrible, and you can actually feel the pain and the anguish of the parents. That was the part that got to me, not so much that it was creepy. I didn't find it creepy, I found it very entertaining. It's just that a bit too painful to watch at times, you know, because it looks very close to home, like it looks realistic, you know. And you're right, I like the fact that they bring back the character of Reagan into the picture. It's a homage, it's a connection, and it's a reboot all at the same time. You're right, you know, it's very smart writers, I would say.
Yeah, but
although the second season, John Cho was good. I like John Cho, and I like the fact of all the kids coming back from so many backgrounds in one house. You know, that was really good. That was not as good as the first season, but entertaining as well, I would say.
Yeah. Yes, totally agree. And let's go back to 1973's version of Exorcist. I think Quentin Tarantino. I quote Quentin Tarantino in this. I think it's the greatest horror film ever made, and the horror film that will never be duplicated. This is Quentin Tarantino saying. It's not me. And it was nominated for 10 Oscars in 1974, and I'm guessing it only won one. Do you think that's fair, or do you think that it should have won at least 2, 3? Which categories do you think would have been better suited for the movie?
Firstly, they should have its own category, scaring the shit out of people. That's one thing. No, but seriously, I think back then and now, the Hollywood type, I assume, they don't go more for genre movies. You know, if you notice, that's why you don't get films like Endgame, you know, Marvel. They won't go for that, you know. They'll be too arty-farty, I figure. But I think it should have won Best Picture for that year. For that year, I think The Sting won the Best Picture, right? For 1973, if I'm mistaken.
Yeah.
Sting, right?
Yes, Sting one.
Yeah, it was an accomplished film, highly entertaining, memorable, everything. But then again, to be honest, 1973 was a tough year because they had so many great films, so
Yeah.
many cinematic pivotal moments in history, which actually paved the way for certain look and feel of movies to come, years later. So you're right. I think you should have one more than just the one. Special effects, script adaptation, um, the screenplay itself was good, and of course the musical score. You've got there was Tubular Bells, right?
Yes.
Mike Oldfield.
Yeah.
It's very distinctive. It's slightly creepy, but very exciting at the same time. You know
Yeah.
how it notches up the tone of the mood of the film.
Mm.
And
Agreed.
I think, I mean, looking back, that's the movie is what 47 years old, right? Uh, it still stands the test of time because it was intelligently written. It wasn't done. It wasn't done by a pair of lazy hands. Basically, they
True.
stuck to the research. They were. They were into details, and the fact that you can tell it was a labor of love. I'm sure
True.
it took 13 months, but the 13 months were worth it. Was worth it to
Yeah.
become one of the giants of cinematic history overall.
Okay. Yes, I totally agree, and I think that even though they were overlooked every nomination on that year, I think William Friedkin should have deserved to get at least best director because there was not wasn't anything else that was Oscar nominated for him after The Exorcist.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. And moving on, let's go back to the curse that we were supposed to discuss about. Other than the
Yeah.
injuries and other than the fire in the set, and there was. Have you seen the new Shudder TV's series called The Curse Films? There was the first episode
No.
is on the Exorcist.
Right.
Okay. Fun
No,
fact
I haven't
then.
seen. I haven't seen. No.
You haven't seen it,
Okay.
yeah? Since you
No.
take a look at it, because I did not know this story, and it's not published anywhere online. Uh, okay, in the scene where Linda Blair is having her operation and psychology test, what was it called again? Anchography. Okay, I can't pronounce it. But there was the scene where she's in the hospital getting X-rayed and such, right?
Right.
Okay, and that procedure was actually done by an actual medical team. It wasn't. They were not a
Okay.
bunch of doctors, but that was a bunch of medical experts, radiologists to be precise. And they were shooting this in 1972, and the actual radiologist, the actual radiologist, Barton Lane, Dr. Barton Lane,
Mm.
confessed that. So if you see the scene, if you watch the scene again, there will be another guy helping the doctor beside him, wearing
Mm.
and he's kind of like very quiet aside, but he's helping with the procedure. His name was Paul Bateson, and he was the
Mm.
radiology technologist. And
Right.
4 years after the film premiered in theaters, he murdered his boyfriend, Addison Burial, in an apartment in New York.
Wow.
So everybody described him as not a murderer, nice guy, gentle, but nobody knew he was gay. Nobody knew he had a boyfriend. And
Mm.
this boyfriend was actually high profile because he was part of a quite famous magazine in the US, and he was in media and such. And he was
Right.
one of the first, the boyfriend was one of the first person to give a negative review of The Exorcist 1973 during the film premiere.
Okay.
So this is some heavy thing. So I would never say a bad review. I wouldn't say anything bad about the next Munafik movie then. There's a lot of deaths and injuries or whatever not connected to the movie. But one of the best things that this movie has done for filmmakers everywhere until now, I think not a lot of people have ever done it effectively, is the marketing, advertising, and promotions because the marketing was done under Hysteria. They had to sell the theme of Hysteria. Do you remember when the movie came? If you remember, during
Yes.
you watched the trailer back in 1973,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It would be like, this is not for the weak of heart.
Yeah.
After these movies, and this kind of hysteria is like something that I dream of when I have my movie running in theater. It was like
Right.
creating mass hysteria. I think the last movie that did this was The Blair Witch, and Paranormal
Yes.
Activity. But Paranormal Activity was doing more of the indie stuff. They were having indie attention, but
Right.
Blair Witch did it mainstream wise, promoting it as a found footage that's actually found in Burkittsville. So this movie was the first hysteria building. Okay, I would have said the first, but effectively done, because
Yep.
where previously we had Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock Psycho, which marketing pushed the whole you shouldn't watch this movie alone at night. Never tell your mother about this. But this movie did it the most efficiently because the coverage the coverage that it had was not only in US but UK, terus up to Malaysia.
Okay.
Was the Exorcist banned in Malaysia?
Sorry?
Was the Exorcist banned in
What?
Malaysia?
No, it was not. But I think it came with a warning because I think like what you said, I mean, they already tagged something to it saying that they give warning. The warning part basically tells people to prepare themselves for something horrific like a roller coaster ride. And it's been effective, you know. A movie like the other movie is will be Phantasm, where it says that if you're not scared, you're already dead, you know. That kind of that exaggerated, warning. And you're right, it works. Very intelligently done. And it gives the warning that, I'm okay. Let's say you've got a heart problem. I say, okay, I'm not going to watch this film. And yet I hear that maybe my cousin saw the film. Then I want to know more about him. So not only does it spread word of mouth kind of marketing, but also stands out among the other movies. Other movies, there's no warning, there's no health warning, there's no anticipation already before you enter the theater. There's nothing of the sort. You just go in and watch the movie, you get scared maybe, and that's it, and then it's over. But this one, you are in trepidation. You're constantly worried that your heart might give up, because you're so scared. And then people cannot resist the challenge. They have to see it, You're 18 and above, you're going to say, I'm a strong guy, I can take it, come on, bring it, So that really draws the people in. I think that was fantastic, But you're right, it's a great drawing factor back then. Even now, if it come out again with something like that, I want to see a movie, Like for example, the Japanese film Audition, right?
Yes, Takashi Miike's Audition, yeah?
Yeah, Takashi Miike. There were reports of people actually walking out from the film. They were vomiting at the aisle. I remember the scene where the girl was cutting off the guy's leg, right? Using the telephone wires. All right. That was basically another form of marketing. Maybe not indirectly, but it led to a certain kind of stature for that kind of horror film. But it was done effectively back during 1973 with Exorcist.
Yeah. Okay then. Let's see. I think we covered most of. We can debunk most of the curses and everything that relates to this movie, but we cannot avoid the fact to say that this is one of the best movies that ever came out in the horror genre. And without it, it would have been wouldn't have possession movies. We wouldn't have realistic SFX, because the SFX was though in the early stages, but in the horror genre, but it proved that you do not need too much of computer effects or CG to come up with an awesome movie. Any last word from you,
practical effects.
Yeah, practical effects.
Yeah, it's all practical effects. I think that movies like this, they pave the way for further movies in the future, and we can only be so lucky to get another movie of this stature, this kind of impact, within now in 2020 and 2021, And to me, I know there's a bit of tangent. The closest would be Hereditary, which I think was groundbreaking. I know you don't quite like the film. I know that after our discussion.
We can discuss it some other time, but I think was well done.
It was well done. It's a groundbreaking film, which I don't think the same level as Exorcist, but it's one of those movies where it can open up other doors for future films. That's what I think. Simply like Exorcist. Exorcist is the grandfather of horror films, and from there you had so.
Yeah, back to your last. Yeah, we were talking about Hereditary, and I totally agree with you. It was a good movie, and everything was good, and then you mentioned that it was the Exorcist is the grandfather of all possession movies, and one of the groundbreaking horror movies ever back in the 70s. Yeah, silakan.
Yeah, because it opened the doors to whether you like it or not, Exorcist laid the history of actually shock horror film. It was there to basically shock you. At the same time, it was also doing subliminal messaging as well in the film. They had like quick snaps of certain images where technically it should basically play at the back of your mind. And I like it that they were experimenting on that in a horror film. And I think it's a bit evil, but I think evil is good for horror films. And I suppose to that extent, I don't think any other movies can come up to the level of Exorcist, even to make a movie now. Because apart from taking drugs and watching a film, I don't think you can get that level of high of being scared, The only movie had one scene in another movie which I felt high and scared at the same time was House of a Thousand Corpses. Rob Zombie's scene. The last part where the girl enters Dr. Satan's room. And fuck, man, the scene where his guy is operating on the boyfriend, the brain opened up, everything. And that part was the height of horror. Okay? And that was achieved with Exorcist as well. Or should I put it the other way around? So achieving the height of horror is not easy to achieve, but once you get there, you are the king, basically, or the queen. That will be my last words on this thing.
Well, with that said, I think it's an excellent day for an exorcism. I'm going to end up with that favorite, that famous quote. So, Magad, I think that we had a question earlier from whom was that? My producer is behind my phone right now, and his name is Magad L.
Actually wanted to ask.
Sabar, let me read. Do you want to read that out? Okay. What was the question again?
Actually wanted to ask.
Oh, okay. So Magad L, Instagram name, would like to ask. Actually, Magad, his take on Midsommar.
Oh, Midsommar, I have not seen yet. Unfortunately, I am planning to watch Midsommar. I know the guy who did Hereditary did Midsommar. I would love to talk about Midsommar once I watch it. It looks like one of those. It looks a bit like The Wicker Man. I get the vibe of a Wicker Man, not Nicolas Cage, okay? The 1973, the original one with what's his face, the Count Dracula guy. Yeah. I get a vibe,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Horror.
Okay. I'm not going to give out any spoilers here, but I think Hereditary did a damn good job. That put A21 Studios. The name of their production house is A21 Studios. I think they put them on the map. But for me, what I kind of like hate about production houses who comes out with horror movies, I really, really hate movies that have Illuminati or
conspiracy.
Not conspiracy, cult symbolism. I really hate symbolism, especially like hip-hop music videos and stuff. I feel like, why do you need symbolism? And when you watch this movie, Midsommar, you realize that other than shitty acting, the symbolism, the more you read, the more you know about Egyptian symbolism, human sacrificing, and how Egyptians lived. And then you compare it to this movie, you'll be like, aku ambil slipper cepuk kau, korang main movie apa nak main. And you can do a movie like how you did Hereditary. Hereditary was a damn good movie. Yeah? There was symbolism, but at least we enjoyed it. Those who are unaware with symbolism enjoyed the movie. But with this movie, the symbolism is like in your face. And if you don't realize the symbolism is there, that means either A, you don't have any knowledge about, it's not conspiracy, but pagan worshipping or yang tengah, you know what's going on in Hollywood right now, why feminism is taking over, why you see people like Hillary Clinton is under the bus, why she lost the elections, and what are the nonsense that's going on under, I don't want to say hashtag or what, but we kind of found out, most Americans know this, but not only the symbolism that's actually true, but people were being murdered and sacrificed through pagan rituals, and they were not actually pagan,
Okay.
but they were actually Egyptian. So
Right.
Midsummer is on your face. Kalau you faham, you faham. You tak faham, then it's like, what the hell just happened? You know, you think like, whoa, oh my god,
Okay.
that was a good movie. But the acting was shitty. You can't even say that it was a good movie. You would say that, wait, this characters tak betul. Like, you know, when you watch Exorcist again, every character feel the need of their character. You have the father that lost faith, and you have this all-American next door girl who's being possessed, and she pull off a demon. But when you watch Midsummer, it's like, what hal korang ni? Why didn't you just run? I mean, like, if you know your friend is doing some shitty, some shit, and you know he's hiding, run. And then okay, spoiler. I'm sorry, I have to say this. If you want to watch it, it's just a small spoiler. You just saw two people commit suicide, and nobody's calling the goddamn cops, and everybody's acting like they're cool. Why are you not
Right.
running? Yeah, so
Alright.
that's my take on Midsummer. But since do you have any other questions, Madam Van, our producer? Any questions from our online community? Okay, so this conversation, this interview, thank you so much, Mr. Magat, will be
Thank you
posted
very
on
much.
YouTube in the next
Alright.
week katanya. Saya akan edit lah, kasih cantik, you nampak cantik, and I will put stuff.
Nampak handsome. Pak Muda.
Oh yes, I totally forgot to introduce you to my co-host. This is
Alright.
Corona Bear. This is Corona
Alright.
Bear. Yeah, he
Alright.
normally joins my interview. Is that too soon? It's not too soon, isn't it? It's too
Nope.
soon. Okay. So, Mr. Magat, author, and what else can we call you?
Male model?
So, okay, author, male
kidding,
model.
only kidding. Can I resist that? Can I resist that?
It might work. I see great futures. Oh, before that, sorry. I need to ask you, what is Mr. Magat Ishak's plans after the MCO PKP moving forward when it comes to the art of horror? I know you're writing a sci-fi book now, sci-fi horror book.
I'm writing this cult, a book about cult. It's called Flesh Tunnel. Okay, It is based on this theater play I wrote about 20 years ago. It's about long lost this old couple looking for their son, but how they go about doing it is very dubious. They kill people, and they've got a cult of old people. Basically, these are geriatric murderers living in a tower. So there's two guys that actually investigate the case of a missing courier. So it's an investigative thriller, but it's also steeped in horror as well. So I'm hoping to wrap it up by the end of MCO lah. It's taken me about 3 years so far, 3 years to write this. You know, I stopped for a while. Now I'm getting back into it lah.
Nice. Okay. And we at Kat Seni Seram, we support you, and
Thank you very much.
as long as some kind of horror elements in it, we are there.
Ada, definitely.
Hopefully, I can get an autographed copy of the book. I don't mind purchasing it, no problem. When it comes out, thank you so much, and I see that on the corner tomorrow, and selamat berpuasa.
Thank you very much.
Good rest, and thank you so much for joining Club Seni Seram's Instagram Live of Horrors first series.
Thank you.
The
Thank you.
Unofficial
Thank you.
Siasat. Thank you, Encik Meja Abagat Isha.
Thank you so much for calling me.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. So.
Okay, that was Encik Bagat Isha, horror author, self-proclaimed male model. No, I was joking. Thank you to him personally for joining Club Seni Seram Instagram Live of Horror, the Unofficial Bedah Siasat. If you have any suggestions of what kind of Bedah Siasat, what movie you like us to Bedah Siasat, comment. Go to our Facebook, go to our Instagram at Club Seni Seram, and you can comment. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you want. All right. Okay. In the meantime, thank you so much. This has been Vimal Hatchet Man, and I'm ending this by saying that's the bottom line of Vimal Hatchet Man said so. Thank you so much. Good night.